Hello, YouTube. We are here. Unnecessary Roughness. There's Casey, there's Katie, there's Jack. We're reacting to an incredible day of college football in Baton Rouge, in Athens, in South Bend. Watch, like, subscribe.
Brandon is delirious. I'm delirious. The whole crew's delirious, but we're here, baby. So like it.
Hey, y'all.
I feel like we were just together.
How y'all doing? Nothing makes you feel more alive than just barely surviving by the skin of your teeth against a really shitty team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what that feels like anymore. So
that was electric. I'm just fired up. What a night of football that was.
I will say, other than, like the last few minutes, I have a feeling that most people that are listening to this podcast probably didn't watch that game. But that's just my guess.
I can go ahead and tell you something right now, Missy. You can change that negative ass tone.
It's not a negative attitude.
No. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I just won on an electric walk-off in overtime. I had a kick go off a guy's head. I had all kind of crazy.
Oh, it was awesome.
You're not going to.
There was a game in Baton Rouge going on at the same time that was.
Nobody watched LSU and Alabama. It was the same time Mississippi State Auburn.
Really tough. That double screen I had to get going. But I texted in the group text. Congratulations, happy for you. There's absolute chaos now going on in the big picture, and I love it.
Let me tell you the world we live in right now. We live in a world where on my notes, which dictates what we're going to talk about, a game between number 1 and number 3 today is the third game we're going to talk about.
Insane.
Let's get to it. Hello and welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast, brought to you by the delicious High Noon Hard Seltzer. There is no better drink for college football season or for any season than High Noon. But since we're in college football season, I always tell you about the tailgate pack. Everybody loves a good tailgate. Everybody loves just going over to their friend's house and watching the game. Hell, everybody might just love sitting on their own couch and watching football. And to do that, you need a High Noon tailgate pack by your side. They have the pear, the cranberry, 2 new flavors in there, along with the grapefruit and the black cherry, old standbys. You can also go out at any liquor store and buy your High Noons, or pretty much anywhere these days. I mean, High Noons are everywhere. Go get you a pack of High Noons. You might even get the peach. You might get you might get the lemon. You might get all their wonderful flavors like the watermelon, the passion fruit, the guava. High Noon, the best drink for college football. Yay! Good job, Brandon.
Yay! Good job, Brandon.
High Noon's delicious.
I had some High Noon tonight, and High Noon makes your college football Saturday or NFL Sunday that much better when you're drinking responsibly. And, I knew I had the podcast tonight, so I only had 1 or 2, but I love the watermelon and the peach, of course. I
mean, listen, High Noon just it goes down easy. It's the perfect companion for and you drink it. I mean, listen, college football is an all-day sport. Nothing better than just sitting and enjoying responsibly High Noon as you watch games. All right. I don't know how, if y'all, maybe it's just me that my team just got done playing that game where they ended up winning 39-33. Maybe it's just I'm being selfish, but that night slate was electric. And obviously the big game happened down in Baton Rouge, but we also had, like she said earlier, chaos has arrived. And,
chaos is here, baby.
And we had some pretenders get exposed for pretending tonight. We had some teams that were given up on early in the season show up. We had some programs with breakthroughs tonight. We had the most dominant dynasty in college football, perhaps take maybe a tiny step towards ending tonight. That's the gravity of what we have, and that's not even including the fact that we had number 1 play number 3 today in a driving rainstorm in Athens, Georgia. Let's get to how y'all feeling. Are y'all feeling good? Because I haven't. Maybe my energy's too high. I feel like I just did a bunch of recreational stuff, but I just watched a football game.
Wait, what?
That was very clear what I said.
Did you say you took recreational drugs just now?
Let's move on.
As if he had.
Correct.
Oh.
The drug you're referencing, by the way, is not recreational.
I need somebody to match my energy. One of y'all needs to go watch something or something.
I
feel like I'm a captain with a ship that everybody else dove overboard.
Oh, we just started the show.
We just started the show, and then every time we try to talk, you continue to talk because you're so excited.
I'm fired up. What do you want me to do?
Well, right.
Nothing.
So we're just letting you talk. We're just letting you do your thing.
So much happened in college football, but Casey Smith, when I look at what happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana tonight, if I could bottle what happened in Baton Rouge tonight and present it to somebody and say, this is what college football is all about, I think I would. The electricity, the atmosphere, the skill level of the players involved, everything came together to paint this beautiful picture in Baton Rouge of what college football exactly is. And that's why we lead off with this game. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at every single week when there's a crazy game, it's easy to say, oh, this is going to be the game of the season. We do it every year, every single time there's a game that gets exciting down there. I mean, we talked about LSU, Florida State being potentially the game of the season, but this one, the one that happened tonight, when you look at the regular season and what the chaos that could have been created with LSU beating Alabama, we're going to look at not only how awesome the game was start to finish with all the things you just mentioned, with Brian Kelly having the nuts that he did to go for 2, with Bryce Young having those Heisman moments late in the game, but also what it could create down the line. And when you look at the regular season of 2022, and I know you mentioned this off the top, potentially there being a change in dynasty, this game has so many implications that not only speak to how crazy the game was, but also the game was just fucking awesome itself. The game was awesome.
I think to tell the story of this game tonight, you have to go back in time to week 1 of this season when Brian Kelly, who gave up a great job at Notre Dame, was hired to go to LSU. And by the way, he accepted this job. He gave up that incredible job at Notre Dame, a top 10 job in the country. He gave that up for nights like this, to play in games like this, to coach players like this. But when he lost to Florida State to open the season, there were a lot of doubts. There were a lot of whispers. There were a lot of catcalls. There were a lot of people saying wrong hire. There were a lot of people saying he did a mistake. He made a mistake by going down there. And they didn't really get out of the blocks very fast. You know, they got their doors blown off by Tennessee. There were moments in the season where you're like, I don't know about Brian Kelly and LSU, but slowly and surely they put it back together and they started inching forward. And tonight they took a gigantic leap forward. And basically, if they could possibly win out, which there's still a lot left on the table, he has put them in position to win the SEC West, to play for a potential playoff spot with 2 losses. That complicates things. We can talk about that later. But Brian Kelly, some people could have given up on him after week 1, and here he is in November, and he just beat Alabama. And LSU job has evolved to the point where you need to do 2 things. You need to win national titles, and you need to beat Alabama. Well, he got one tonight.
This is one of those very prototypical cliche, we owe somebody an apology type game, because the way that I think we did it. I know we did it in the offseason, especially the way that LSU started this season. It was very easy to clown Brian Kelly. It was very easy. He wasn't a likable guy really at Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans, even it was kind of like, yeah, he's our coach, but he's kind of an asshole. Then he goes to LSU. And I mean, the clips that people are now resurfacing, and again, not just from us, not just from Barstool, just from people in general, is making fun of the Southern accent, making fun of the videos where, you had the 360 degree cameras. Everything was like, Brian Kelly makes it not so much fun to root for LSU. All of that is dead. And it didn't even take a full season. And what you just mentioned, which is true, but just to even further it, it's like, if you can beat Nick Saban, especially in a season where Nick Saban still had a path to the college football playoff, and you know that Alabama is eliminated on November the 6th or the 5th at that time, November the 6th. I mean, you're not just an LSU favorite. You're a fan favorite for anybody who hates Alabama right now.
Jack, I want to ask you this question. At the end of the game, and this was a great game, back and forth, touchdown, field goal. There was never much separation. But at the end of the game, Alabama scored a touchdown in overtime, and they went up 31-24. And then Jaden Daniels scored a 25-yard touchdown on the first play of LSU's overtime to make it 31-30. Brian Kelly didn't hesitate. He said, we are going for 2 to win the game. Jack, is it my imagination? Does it feel like that choice to go for two is a lot more prevalent today. It feels like that's the prevailing thought now with coaches is we're just going to go for it right here.
Yeah. I mean, that was an interesting choice because it felt like his defense was playing really well. Maybe he knew something that we didn't. Maybe the defensive coordinators were telling us, hey, this defense is tired. But it felt like I was a little bit surprised by it, but it is much more prevalent. We saw it in the USC-Utah game.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if we're going to have to change this at some point, but it's only 2 yards, 3 yards. It's if you have a competent offense and you have the right play calls, it's not that hard to get. And that's
especially for them because that quarterback's so dynamic that you got to worry about the quarterback. And this is a direct counter to what he did when they went 90 yards and scored against Florida State. They went for the extra point and got blocked. They lost the game. And here, if you lose the game, at least you can say, well, we went down trying. But as great as this moment is for LSU, as awesome as this is, as chaotic as this might seem, because the SEC West, listen, LSU could win it. Ole Miss could now win it. Like it's wide open out there in the SEC West. We'll put that to the side. But as big as this is for LSU and as awesome as it looked, the real story here might be the fact that this is the first normal Alabama team in years. Like this is an actual team that's just good. There's nothing special about them.
Jack was raising his hand. I was going to wait to say something.
I'm shocked because we left last season talking about this Alabama team as potentially the best ever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter because he has about like 10 mulligans of disappointing seasons, but this is an incredibly disappointing performance by Nick Saban. Maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it's the hires he made, but man, they picked up Eli Ricks and LSU targeted him all night.
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs, they picked up massive guys. They have two top 5 picks, including a Heisman winning quarterback.
Let me throw an idea at you. In this era where guys like Lane Kiffin have mastered the transfer portal, Saban kind of botched it because he takes in Eli Ricks. Eli Ricks is terrible. I don't know. And then he takes in like several transfer wide receivers. Their wide receiver group is as average as it's been in the last 10 years. Like he didn't go out and get the help that other teams have gotten, and he was adding it to a team that was already loaded. So did he botch the transfer portal?
I mean, it's tough to say he botched the transfer portal when he picked up Jermaine Burton, who credit to Jermaine Burton for not knocking down any woman tonight on when LSU rushed the field. That a man turns into a child turns into a man, or a boy turns into a man when he learns from his mistakes. Jahmyr Gibbs, Eli Ricks, those are 3 guys that are like 3 of the best weapons in the transfer portal that we saw.
Yeah,
However,
but Eli Ricks has been terrible.
I know, but did he botch it, or did it was just like I don't know? It's like anybody would have taken Eli Ricks, anybody would have taken Jermaine Burton, anybody would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm sure Lane Kiffin called them.
Well, the thing is, as average as they listen, Bryce Young is a superhero. Bryce Young is doing what he can. I think he's been just as good this year as he was last year when he won the Heisman. Like he puts his team on his back and tries to do miracles, but the miracles have run out. And listen, that defense is not. It's just fine. That offense is just fine. And there's nothing special about Alabama this year. And Alabama's been special for the most part for 15 years.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not doing this to like dance around because I'm going to have to eat crow as well. I know later in the next few games, but this is what I've been trying to say about Alabama all season. And I'm not the only person that's been saying it. It's not like I'm like, savant that no one else has seen. It's just this Alabama team, even when Quinn Ewers got hurt, this Alabama team has shown us week in and week out all season that they are not the Alabama we're used to seeing. From their offense outside of Bryce Young, their defense giving up the points, again, the penalties and how undisciplined they are. There's been nothing about this Alabama team any week that has said that I thought that they could go into Baton Rouge tonight and win by double digits. And I don't know, I think it was probably the Tennessee game, Jack, when we talked about how outside of Bryce Young, and outside of the guys that you would put on posters in Tuscaloosa, there's nothing special about this Alabama team in comparison to what we've seen in Nick Saban's history at Alabama. And they proved it again tonight. So I'm not surprised. Am I surprised that LSU won the way that they did? Yeah, I did not think that they would end up winning. And I think I said that Alabama would win, but LSU would cover. But Alabama's been trying to tell us this all season, and we just saw it happen. And even if they would have lost, even if Alabama would have won the game, they were still telling us, they're still showing us that outside of Bryce Young's heroic plays at the end of the game, he struggled too. So this Alabama team didn't surprise me tonight.
Now, credit to Casey, because Casey, since the Texas game, or since maybe the Tennessee game, one of her themes has been this Alabama team is not the Alabama team that we know, and they haven't turned in Alabama because of the penalties and whatnot. So credit to you. But it's like there is things special about this team. You know, Will Anderson was talked about like he's going to be a first defensive Heisman winner. And that's not just like crazy talk. That was legit talk. I don't know what happened. I don't know.
There are special players and there's special talent, and obviously the greatest coach of all time. There's no doubt about that. But as a team, something did not click. And we saw it in the Texas game, and it has continued. They had the game against Mississippi State, but it has continued throughout the season. And so, I don't know what Nick Saban thought when he said this was a rebuilding year, or last year was a rebuilding year, and that this season was going to be so much better. But Alabama has been begging us to say they're not Alabama. They're not Nick Saban's Alabama all year, and they just happened to lose the way that they did.
Well, let me say this about Nick Saban. If last year was, in fact, a rebuilding year that he claimed in the offseason, then he failed as a coach because he didn't build shit. He did not build shit off of that year. In fact, they're worse this season than they were. So I don't know. Maybe it's the first cracks in the foundation of the Saban dynasty, which is, again, the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport. Dynasties shouldn't last 15 years. That's crazy. And tonight, we should be fair. I think LSU, this night should be more about LSU. It should be more about a team and a coach that a lot of people gave up on. I know I gave up on them when they lost to Florida State. And here they sit 7-2. They got A&M left. They got I don't know how much they didn't got much left on this ball. Let me see that LSU football schedule going forward. I know they got A&M obviously, but they're 7-2 right now.
At Arkansas next week versus UAB at A&M.
That's 3 wins.
No, maybe not. Arkansas is tough. I know Arkansas lost today, but at Arkansas is just a tricky spot. So
they could slip up against you guys.
A&M?
Yeah.
No, they're not slipping up against A&M. A&M's a whole different animal that we'll talk about later. All right,
I agree, but Brandon, I agree with you that this story is more about LSU. Like, especially if you bought into the Alabama has been telling us type of storyline. But Brian Kelly was the butt of so many jokes in the offseason. He was the butt of the jokes at the beginning of the season. LSU fans, Jack, when we went through and looked at the forums before their Tennessee game, LSU fans were down bad. And they're in control of the SEC West right now. I know Ole Miss is in there too, but Brian Kelly turned the whole story around back and forth like 3 different times this whole season.
And Jaden Daniels did as well. Jaden Daniels, I think he caught a lot of heat after that first game loss, but he is a dynamic guy that even when things aren't going well offensively, you look up and he's got a 40-yard run in his pocket, and all of a sudden they're in business. So let's move off of that. LSU and Alabama, a huge night for LSU, a bad night for Bama. Before we get to Georgia, Tennessee, I do want to stop off and talk about a team that we're just probably not going to have to talk about anymore because Clemson finally got exposed. If you're out there and you listen to this podcast and you did what I said, you prayed to touchdown Jesus, praying works, folks. Praying works. Prayer does miracles. And here we go. The weird thing is, though, that wasn't a miracle. Clemson just got outclassed and destroyed by a team who's frankly probably better than them.
Which again, when you talk about Notre Dame, the fact that they lost to Marshall and they lost to Stanford and you look at the way that they played, they are a confusing team because sometimes they play incredibly well and sometimes they absolutely suck, but they played really, really well the night that I think outside of the Clemson fan base wanted them to, needed them to. And I think that, and this usually happens every single year, it'll happen probably the next couple of weeks too. We make such a big deal about what the playoff committee does, which, by the way, I think we should, because that's the whole point of covering college football. It's the whole point of covering the sport. Like, we have to talk about what's being presented to us. But them being ranked at number 4 this week in the first rankings made them have such a target on their back, because everyone that didn't think they should be there was sitting there like, are you guys not watching what we're watching? This team is fraudulent. This team has, yes, had 3 ranked wins, but look at these ranked wins. For them to go out and get beat the way that they did, just absolutely humiliated by a Notre Dame team that has struggled this year, is just perfect. It's just, I don't even know what word to put out there other than like perfect bliss if you're not a Clemson fan.
Listen, Clemson fans argue till we're blue in the face. Oh yeah, you said that in 2016, you said it in 2018. It was obvious. Listen, DJ is not an elite quarterback. Will Shipley is not an elite running back. You don't have elite receivers. This is just not an elite team right now. Dabo has lost the eliteness of this team. It's a decent team, but there's nothing special about it. And they were just waiting to get exposed. I think we found out through Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been the magnifying glass. It tells us the ACC is not a good conference at all. And Katie, cover your ears. But Notre Dame went on the road and beat Carolina, who's going to win their division. Notre Dame stayed at home and beat the pants off of Clemson, who's going to win the division. And they went on the road, beat Syracuse, who the bloom's kind of off that rose. But good for Marcus Freeman, because you talk about Brian Kelly. You talk about people that talk about him early. What about Marcus Freeman, who loses to Ohio State? There's no shame in that. And then loses to Marshall. And, are we going to fire him? This is going to be a crazy year 1. They're 6-3. He has a big win right now. They got huge games coming up. That defense is legit, and they have saved us the blowout that would have happened if Clemson made the Final Four.
And there might be a blowout or 2 blowouts in the college football playoff semifinals. We see it every year. However, if you like the idea of parity, it's nice that it might be somebody else that's going to be there, and it's not going to be Clemson. And, you know, we made the joke about praying to touchdown Jesus and saying all the Hail Marys.
That wasn't a joke.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, you weren't really praying for that.
Huh.
You were praying to beat Auburn tonight, sir.
Well, yeah, once we got in the game, I was, but all week it was touchdown Jesus.
Yeah. But this was the ultimate proof that, you know, that teams can get exposed earlier. They're not going to be in the college football playoff now, bless up. And that Notre Dame, and I'm not saying that they're a great team because they have had the losses they have, but that you can't bury teams like that even though they lose. They can still play spoiler. And good for Marcus Freeman. It is weird that Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly both got like their big statement wins of being a head coach of these programs on the same night. Like, that's just kind of, I don't know, that's like maybe it's a Catholic thing. I don't know, but huge for him. And if you're a Notre Dame fan moving forward, you can say like, yeah, we stumbled along the way in the first year of a new head coach. However, we proved to create chaos outside of that and knocked off Dabo when they had a clear path to the college football playoff. I mean, Clemson had the clearest path. All they had to do was win. It didn't matter what else happened. And they're not going to be there now. Shout out Notre Dame.
Yeah, the thing about Marcus Freeman, once they lost to Marshall and once they lost to Ohio State and they lost to Stanford earlier, once all that happened, you're just looking for hope. And you're coaching as a first-year guy to build your program. And he's recruiting at a high level. He just needed something to hang his hat on. Well, the hat is now hung as they have beaten Clemson. I thought one interesting note about this game, Clemson fans have been kind of in the back of their mind just waiting for Cade to rescue everything. They're giving DJ all the room in the world to take the job, and he just really hasn't gotten over the hump. DJ was bad tonight, 27-39 for only 191 yards. Then Cade Klubnik comes in. He's 0 for 1 with an interception. So, it just didn't matter. Nothing mattered against that Notre Dame defense tonight. Shout out to Notre Dame. Now we get to the biggest game of the week. Coming in, it was the biggest game of the week. I think going out, the Notre Dame-Clemson game was bigger because it got rid of a playoff contender. And coming out, LSU-Alabama, bigger because it got rid of a playoff contender. Tennessee goes down to Georgia, the number 1 team in the country. Get exposed is probably a little bit too much, but they did get on a field with a team who is the defending national champion. They did walk into a place that was nuts and bananas, and they did find out there, as of right now, November 5th, 2022, Georgia's probably on a different level talent-wise and team-wise than they are.
Brandon, I want you to do something for me, okay?
Yeah.
I want you to rewind your brain, rewind your thought process back to week 1 of college football, when this lovely crew of Unnecessary Roughness was sitting in Hoboken, and we were breaking down the week 1 action and the instant reaction. And we all sat there and said one thing. We all agreed on one thing, and that was Georgia is the best team in the country, because they went out and they killed Oregon the way that they did. And now obviously that win is aging incredibly well, because Oregon looks unreal. Bo Nix looks unreal. But then if you look at what we said that night and you fast forward to tonight, months later, it's still the same storyline. And hand up, I will go ahead and get this out of the way. I was very wrong about what I thought was going to happen today in Athens. I was very wrong about the noise not getting to Hendon Hooker and getting to the Tennessee offensive line. But the bigger thing is what Oregon was, or what Georgia told us in week 1 that we all saw. It's still the same thing, regardless if they struggled to Missouri, regardless if they've struggled along the way or not played as well. Oregon is the best. I mean, I keep saying Oregon. Georgia is the best team in the country, and they proved that again. And I know you mentioned the playoff contender, and I think that you think Tennessee could still get in. I think it'll take a lot.
They're going to get in, yeah.
But Georgia made the statement today that despite them not being ranked number 1 in the college football playoff in week 1, they should have been, and they will be this week for good reason. And credit to Georgia, because they look elite across the board.
I'm torn on going that far. Like, They walked out there and they told Tennessee, we're a better football team than you. We have more talented players. They also left it a little bit open-ended. Like, they didn't shut the door on them. Like they
Isn't that more Kirby?
They got them to the top, the weather too. Like, they got them to the top of the stairs, but they didn't really kick them down the flight of stairs.
But I think they could have. And I know that you were frustrated.
Yeah, but they didn't, Casey. They didn't. And then listen, Tennessee found out a valuable lesson today. They had the worst problem in sports. The other team was just better than they are. And I don't want to let Hendon Hooker off the hook so much for saying the noise got to him, because the noise got to the offensive lineman and created a lot of false starts. But Hendon Hooker, he got in that pocket and he just stood like a statue and let Georgia just get to him over and over and over again. He didn't make the right snap decisions that he's been making all year. And now listen, Georgia's best defense in the country. Kirby Smart knows what he's doing. It's really hard to play college football and play college football quarterback. But the game looked so easy to Hendon Hooker and Josh Heupel for 8 weeks. And Georgia said, no, it's not that easy. We are the best defense in the country. And listen, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Michigan, whether it's Oregon with Bo Nix, whether it's Tennessee again, somebody's going to have to figure out that Georgia defense on a top level, on a high level game, in a high level spot. I wish them luck, because it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I first and foremost would also like to say, and it's an easy thing to dunk all over for Georgia fans, and I would do the same thing if I was in their shoes towards me, saying oh, the crowd noise didn't play into fact. I mean, that the tweets, as you can imagine, I'm getting are all about that. That's not the only reason that Tennessee lost this game tonight, because even when Hendon Hooker was able to get, when they were able to get the ball in his hands, there were multiple times where it looked like he was frozen. Remember that one play where he was flushed out of the pocket and he kind of juked a little bit, trying to make one of the Georgia defensive players, I don't know what he was trying to do. It looked like he was running in slow motion. He was off on a lot of throws that he would not have been off any of the previous weeks. He overthrew these guys sometimes by such a small margin. That's just not the same guy. So yes, the atmosphere was crazy, but then you take into consideration what you just said is they've not played a defense like they have. And now you look at Alabama, still a great win. And obviously Alabama, it came down to Brian Kelly having the nuts that he did. But you look and you say, Georgia's just not on the same caliber as these teams. Georgia's just better than these teams.
I still think I'm not. I don't know that I can go as far as to saying Georgia's just a step above everybody. I want to.
No, I'm saying over Alabama and Tennessee, though.
Like if they played on a neutral field, would Tennessee fare better than they did today? I think maybe. So I just want to slow down right there.
Yes, no. I'm not throwing Tennessee the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying that what I thought this Tennessee offense was even if they got rattled a little bit, even if they got slowed down a little bit, they would still look like the offense that we had seen throughout the season. And that the Tennessee defense, who's very bad against the pass, we know that from the numbers, but for maybe, multiple different reasons, would be able to slow them down. They couldn't do shit. The defense couldn't do anything for a lot
Tennessee's
of that game.
defense is not that good. And Kirby Smart is a very nice man, a very sweet man, because if he wanted in the first half, I mean, Stetson Bennett looked like Brett Favre. He was throwing to wide receivers 40 yards down the field who were not covered, and Rain and Kirby being nice. I think they threw the ball 5 times total in the second half after they took a 27-6 lead. Like he could, if he wanted to beat them by 40, I feel like they could have done it, but they didn't. So, but anyway,
that's why I was asking you, like it wasn't like Kirby Smart was throwing everything at them and then they still, there was a close backdoor cover situation. Like it was almost like Kirby Smart was calling the game to not bury them for whatever reason. And I don't know what that reason would be, but I mean, we all said it when we were watching the game. The score is deceiving. The score looks like it's a much closer game than if you actually sat and watched that game. And not only that, the game itself was just boring. Like it didn't have that pop. Yeah. And it's because Tennessee was so lackluster in comparison to what we've seen all year. And I'll be honest, that sucked to watch. I bought into the hype. It was wrong, but what's not wrong is Georgia being the best team in the country.
Well, when a team has a defense that's just light years above everybody else, it can make for boring games. And the ultimate thing is Josh Heupel's done a miracle job in his second year. And I do think they're going to get to the playoff. I'll get to that in a minute. But ultimately, if you look at Jack, we talk about recruiting all the time, but if you look at the star power and the talent level of Georgia and talent level of Tennessee, it's not really all that close. And Tennessee, whatever. Anyway, let's move on to the playoff. Tennessee lost today when they went to Georgia and got handled. I think they ended up winning today too. Them and the Pac-12. The Pac-12 champ and Tennessee, I think, are headed on a collision course to possibly being head up in a debate very, very soon, because SEC champ gets in, Big 12 champ or Big 10 champ gets in. TCU, I don't think is going to go undefeated. Hell, maybe Tennessee and the Pac-12 champ get in, but like Tennessee's got a clear path to the playoff right now.
I know that you just did that and it wasn't a Freudian slip, but that's what I want to say, that saying the Big 12 was a Freudian slip. I know you think TCU is going to lose. I know that. I hear you.
The TCU is a non-factor. Y'all can talk about it.
They are a factor right now, Brandon.
They're not.
They are a factor right now.
They're just not. You talk about.
They are.
They're not.
You cannot talk about the college football playoff scenario right now without talking about TCU.
Casey, if I wasn't going to pretend Clemson was good enough to do it, I'm not going to pretend TCU. They are not.
But I know, but I'm not saying you need to pretend like they're good enough. But when Clemson was put at number 4 in the college football playoff rankings last week, we did have to talk about a scenario that they could get in.
Y'all can talk about it. I'm not pretending TCU is going to make this playoff. They're not.
But they have to be in a scenario. You can't look at Tennessee and
you
say, well,
pretend they're going to be in it, but they're not. They're just not. They're going to lose.
TCU has a clear path to it too. Very clear.
It's not clear. They can't win those games.
But the clearest thing in the world is say, if you just win every game, you get in. Tennessee.
They're not going to. Why are we wasting? They're not going to.
But it's still a path. Like you can't say Tennessee has a clear path to the playoffs.
Casey, we're doing this by opinion, right? I can say that.
I mean, Jack, am I taking crazy pills here?
No, I see what Brandon's saying. He doesn't believe they're going to win.
But there's still a clear path for TCU.
Again, if you want to talk about it. I'm not going to. They're not.
Yeah, I mean, TCU's within this discussion from my point of view. Their chances against Texas and Baylor, they're going to have to really take a step forward. But their path is there. Theoretically, it would be interesting to see what they would do with a 13-0 TCU. TCU is going to have to really win. It's going to be tough because they have to win the Big 12 championship game too. It's going to be hard for them.
Oh, definitely. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying when I'm looking at what the scenario could look like, like a Pac-12, a one-loss Pac-12 team and a one-loss Tennessee team, you have to put TCU in that conversation.
They're not. I mean, we can put them in there now. They're not going to be in it in like a week or two. So I just don't. I mean, they're a fine story, great story. But when we talk about the college football playoff and the elite teams that are going to play for a national title, they're not one of them, and they're not going to be. And that's what I believe. And that's just I don't know what to tell you.
No, and that you have every right to have that opinion. I think I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Do I think that TCU is of the caliber of Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia? No. Do I think that they deserve potentially to prove that they're not of that caliber? Absolutely.
Well, they have that opportunity. They have that opportunity.
Right. I think that Tennessee's path now, and I'm curious to see, I know obviously like the math of it, if Georgia beats Alabama and Tennessee has one loss, but
you just made a Freudian slip. You have to talk yourself out of this because I know what you just did. What'd you say? You said if Georgia beats Alabama, Casey, Alabama's out.
Right.
We've been saying it all year. If Georgia beats Alabama, we got to get used to the new reality. They're out.
They're out.
No, I know. So what's your scenario that Tennessee has a clear path?
Oh, easy. They're just right now you have even now you have Big Ten champ. You have.
Oh, you're saying they're out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was like, yeah, no, I know they're out of the playoff. Yes, you're right.
If Georgia beats Alabama, it's just something we've been talking about all year. If Georgia beats Alabama, guess what? Georgia ain't gonna have to.
Right. Okay. Yes. I see. I put them in the SEC championship without realizing that that's what you meant.
We have been doing that for weeks, and we shouldn't have. And
okay, so then, whoever it may be that comes from the West, you're thinking that for Tennessee, that if their only loss is to Georgia in the regular season, they will potentially have the best one-loss resume, because guess what happened tonight? Their Alabama win got a little worse, but you know what happened? Their LSU win got better.
Got a lot better. that road LSU blowout got a lot better. So they really didn't lose in that. And Clemson was going to be taking up a spot from somebody. And now I think even if, let's say TCU, I'll do it right now. Even if TCU goes undefeated, you have Big Ten champ, SEC champ, TCU. And that last spot is going to be one loss Tennessee, one loss Michigan, and one loss Pac-12 champ. And Tennessee's going to win that debate potentially.
All right. So here's a hypothetical for you, because you are like the LSU win looks a lot better now. And it looked good anyways, because they absolutely killed LSU. But let's say it comes to fruition that like Ole Miss ends up in Atlanta. Does that hurt TCU's chances? I mean, Tennessee's chances?
If Ole Miss ends up in Atlanta and then wins the SEC championship, they're 12-1.
Oh God!
I'm saying that like hypothetically, Georgia wins the SEC championship. I think that's what we're assuming here for Tennessee to get in. So Tennessee plays LSU. Excuse me, Georgia. I'm all over the place. Georgia plays LSU in the SEC championship. That looks great for Tennessee. What if Georgia plays Ole Miss? Does that matter?
I don't think it matters at all. I don't think it matters.
I do know what matters, and that's the scenario you have every time that you try to go to a sporting event. And there's an app out there that truly helps you with making sure you get the #1 slot in the college football playoff ranking of ticket apps, or whatever you want to call it, ticketing app. That's Game Time. This is the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports, created by the fans for fans. Game Time's a new ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. We've used Game Time. I think all of us have used Game Time. Brandon has, Casey has, for sports, shows, you name it, we've used it. I've been using Game Time all year. So easy to use, amazing deals. I've been using Game Time since I was in college. So today I want you to go and download the Game Time app. Go to the account tab to create a login and redeem code RUFF for $20 off your first purchase. That's right, RUFF. the code ROUGH, ROUGH, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed.
I want to paint a picture for you. Obviously, do that and use code ROUGH. But imagine this. It's Sunday morning. You're listening to this show and you're saying, my God, I'm fired up for football. And you live within an hour of an NFL stadium, but you don't have tickets. Download that Game Time app. Go look. They have the lowest prices guaranteed. Get up on a Sunday morning, just decide to go to an NFL game because Game Time is the best place to get last-minute tickets. And you can do that next Saturday for college football as well. Game Time is wonderful. All right.
College basketball starting too.
Now, speaking of Barstool Invitational Friday night in Philly, if you're in the Philly area or anywhere near, get there and watch us do our thing. All right. Let's move on from that because I'm going to group these two teams together. Ohio State and Michigan. They both look sluggish for a while today. Ohio State looks sluggish longer. Michigan looked sluggish for a half. Michigan ended up coming out and destroying Rutgers in the second half. But both seem to be in kind of a holding pattern until they finally get together and settle this thing in Columbus in 3 weeks. But who do you take a dim review of today? Did Ohio State play so poorly that you're like, oh boy, I don't know about Ohio State? Did that happen?
I think that it didn't change my mind necessarily because I think Michigan's going to win that game. So I didn't come away from it like, I mean, there were definitely moments where I was buying into the whole Michigan's going to beat the shit out of them. Then I watched Michigan play Rutgers for a half and I was like, oh boy. I do take, I think, a little bit more away from what happened with Ohio State because of how poorly CJ Stroud played. I think that was the bigger thing. And I know that there was weather. I get that, but still it's Northwestern. You know, they are one of, if not the worst team in the Power Five. And for CJ Stroud to have the day that he had against them, that to me was a little bit more alarming for Ohio State because we know that their defense is good. We know that their offense is elite. And, you know, you and I have sat up on that stage multiple times this year for the college football show and said, you know, Ohio State has the best offense in the country. And then it was Tennessee. And it was like, neither one of those guys. I mean, you talk about Hendon Hooker not playing well. CJ Stroud did the same thing. So you can lump them in, especially for the first half. But I think if I'm picking one or the other, and it's not just because I like Michigan more this season, I think Ohio State had more to be concerned about.
Hey, I have a question.
No.
Who's the best offense in the country?
Hold on. We'll get to that. It's a good question. Nobody wants to give Goliath a break. Nobody ever wants to give a number 2 team in the country a break. That being said, that weather was horrendous. That weather was
really bad.
Gross. Like you're talking about an offense that throws the ball 60 times a game and they're throwing in 40-mile-an-hour winds, 50-mile-an-hour winds. Like CJ Stroud was awful today. He didn't wake up awful. He didn't just like show up to the game and be like, I'm going to be awful today. No, the weather destroyed him and he didn't adjust to it. But he's not going to play in that very much. And that was like a once in a lifetime game or once in a season game where it was just 40-mile-an-hour winds, raining sideways, and they won 21-7. Now it's against the worst team in Power 5, a team that hasn't won in America, and it's embarrassing. But ultimately, in 3 weeks, when they're warming up for their game against Michigan, nothing that happened in Evanston, Illinois today is going to matter at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think it will either. But in your question of in a vacuum today between Ohio State and Michigan, is there one that you pick out more? I don't think you can give either one of them a pass completely. But yeah, the weather was shit. But I mean, for CJ Stroud to have 76 total yards, that is an alarming thing to look at. Yes, the weather comes into play. But I do think that, between now and Thanksgiving weekend, we're going to have such a microscope on both of these teams trying to figure out which side you want to take and who's the better team and who looks shittier. Because when Ohio State was playing earlier today, Michigan fans were super loud on social media laughing about it. Those same fans were very quiet for a half of football tonight when Michigan was playing Rutgers. And we're all going to do that. What it says to me more so, and we saw Illinois lose today too, is what does this mean for the Big Ten? What does this mean? Is the Big Ten, the powerhouses of the Big Ten are obviously Ohio State and Michigan, but the Big Ten strength isn't that great.
Yeah, I really feel like we're going to get to this playoff with 4 decent teams, and we're not going to know a whole lot about any of them except for maybe Georgia. Michigan and Ohio State haven't had many opportunities to show us exactly what they are yet. And listen, Illinois taking a loss today didn't help anybody in the Big Ten. We'll get to them later. Katie, you threw your finger up. You
No,
didn't. Okay,
sorry.
I guess I'm still drunk or something.
Well, also Michigan.
Yeah.
Michigan played amazing today outside of the first half, but the first half featured some field goals that were missed by inches.
Yeah.
So, a botched punt. Those are not great. Those are not things that great teams do. But then they came out in the second half. The defense didn't let Rutgers do a thing. They only allowed Rutgers to score 7 points on offense, 10 points on offense, 52 points.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Let me say this about Ohio State real quick. They won 21-7, and they were never in any real danger of losing in the second half. But in a game where the playbooks were not wide open and you knew what the other team was pretty much going to do, Northwestern kind of moved the ball at will in that first half on the ground. And there were some weaknesses there where they were doing the Wildcat. They were doing, their average running backs there at Northwestern. When Michigan shows up to Ohio Stadium, and you've shown me that weakness on film, and I got Blake Corum and I got Edwards and I got a running quarterback or a quarterback who can run, boy, I'm not sure Jim Harbaugh's going to throw a pass in the first half of that game.
You might not have to, because Jack, you're 1,000% right. I mean, when we talk about who we take more away from, Ohio State or Michigan, you're only talking about one half of football for Michigan, because when you look at that second half, it wasn't even a game. And both Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards had over 100 yards again. And so I think that's why I look and say, if I was voting tonight, who I would rank higher, I would rank Michigan higher than Ohio State.
I'm not sure what's necessarily wrong within the Ohio State program, but they're not very physical. They don't like physicality. This was something we saw last year. We thought Jim Knowles would change it. He's changed it a little bit on defense. But Michigan, if you put them in that situation today at Northwestern, and this isn't how the game will be played against Ohio State, but I think Michigan wins 35-42-7.
Yeah, and body language means something. You talk about toughness. If you watch that game with Ohio State Northwestern today, when it started raining sideways in the second half and it was windy as hell, Northwestern guys were like jumping up and down and waving flags and they're excited to be. CJ Stroud didn't want to be anywhere near that field.
They were just trying to be like, hey, let's win this by 3 and get the fuck out of here, man.
CJ Stroud's body language was bad. He was like, I didn't sign up for this shit. So that body language matters. But then again, if we get to like November 20, whatever it is, and it's 55 degrees and sunny, we won't worry about what happened in Evanston, Illinois. Now,
Brandon, let me ask you this. Let me ask what? Let me, like, for you, from your standpoint, do you take, like, you're very high on Ohio State over Michigan, which is a lot of people are. Did today give you any concern whatsoever looking at the way Michigan played in the second half, knowing what Ohio State's potential weakness on their defense is? Not
maybe a little bit. Like I didn't like the toughness and the body language I saw out of Ohio State. But again, when Michigan's on the other side, that they're going to be laser focused and everything, and they got embarrassed by Michigan last year. So I don't know. That conference is such a one-game season now. Nothing matters until they're standing on the field in Columbus. Not a bit of it. And if we can micro look at it, we can say, oh my goodness, Ohio State on 3rd and 7 didn't play well against Northwestern. But it's a one-game season, and when you have a one-game season, anything can happen, and nothing matters but what happens in that 3-hour window.
1,000%. That's why I'm saying, like, and Illinois losing, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but Illinois losing makes it a little bit less interesting to get to that weekend because Michigan still has to play them. Now, that's not to say that Illinois just all of a sudden stinks, but losing to Michigan State with how bad Michigan State has been, that knocks the rest of the conference for sure.
I will say one thing that is going under talked about as far as those two teams. If Ohio State, and this is a big if Ohio State can find their nuts and slow down that Michigan run game, if they can stymie Blake Corum and Edwards, if they can do that, if they can make Michigan beat them with J.J. McCarthy, he hasn't been very good. And he wasn't very good today. And I'm not sure he's the kind of guy that's going to go win you a road game with his arm. So that's a big if, though, because Blake Corum and that offensive line and that other running back, Donovan Edwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
I don't know. He's not been great, but he hasn't had to be.
But he will. I'm just saying.
I'm sure he will have to.
If it's a track meet in Columbus and he needs to throw for 300 yards and 3 scores, I'm not sure he has that club in his bag. We'll see.
But we know CJ Stroud does. So
one more topic before I just run through my good stuff. The Heisman is now a free-for-all, right? So we come into this day, the two favorites who had pulled away a little bit were CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker. I don't think either took a huge step towards the Heisman tonight. Bryce Young, who won it last year, lost tonight, so he's probably pretty eliminated, even though he had some moments. Blake Corum was fine. I don't know what Caleb Williams is playing right now. But
say his name.
What? Oh,
say his name.
I don't know which
Bo
name.
Nix.
There's two. No. There's two names I think he might be fishing for.
I'm not saying the other.
You're not saying
the other one.
You're not saying Max Duggan. Okay.
No, Max Duggan's done a great year. Bo Nix, I think. I don't know, man. Like, it's weird. If Bo Nix wins the Heisman, man, it's the most shocking thing of the season. I don't care who wins the Natty.
Okay, now listen. And when I say it's a free-for-all, it's going to come down. This Heisman is going to come down to 3 distinct things. Okay. Number one, the SEC's candidate it's Hendon Hooker. Okay. He has 3 games left against bad opponents. He needs to just put up numbies. That's what he needs to do because he already has the moment and the win over Alabama, and LSU. But I think he might be on the outside looking in. Or it's going to come down to that Ohio State-Michigan game. CJ Stroud versus Blake Corum. Corum runs for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns in a win, or CJ Stroud throws for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns in a win. The winner of that takes a big step towards winning the Heisman. And then the round robin in the Pac-12, because you have Caleb Williams, you have Bo Nix, and then you have maybe on the outside, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. All 3 one-loss teams will play to determine who's the champion of that league. Whichever player guides his team through that is going to be in the mix for the Heisman. That's your 3 scenarios. That's our 3 highways right here.
It is a free-for-all because on a day where somebody could have made a major step forward because of the way everybody else played, nobody really did. And had Alabama won, I know Bryce Young struggled, but the magic that he had close to the end of that game, if Alabama would have beaten LSU, you could have really looked and said, okay, like this Bryce Young is playing at the highest level when he needs to. He didn't play that way the whole game. But it's hard, as much as I like Michigan and as much as I like Blake Corum, it's hard for me to think that he's going to be the favorite of it. I guess if I had to pick who I think they're going to have the favorite, I think is CJ Stroud still going to be there? I feel like CJ Stroud's still going to be there.
Oh, yeah. CJ Stroud, to me, I would still say is probably the favorite to win it. He has the home game against Michigan. And again, he shows out that day, and that goes a long way towards – remember, you got to think about when Bryce Young won it last year. He didn't win it in the first 11 games. He won it on the last drive against Auburn and then dominated the SEC championship game. That won him the Heisman.
But I mean, as of tomorrow, when we wake up, I think CJ Stroud would still be the favorite.
I think
I'm looking right now. So he's actually minus 125. Next up is Hendon at plus 250, Blake Corum at plus 700.
What's Caleb at?
Caleb plus 800, Stetson Bennett 1,000, Bo Nix 1,200.
Stetson Bennett belongs nowhere near that list. That's crazy.
Brandon, let me tell you something. You're going to get a lot of Georgia fans saying that he should be.
Well, I don't care what they say. I mean, he's fine, but I mean, whatever. And just I'm going to throw one wild card out there. I don't know if Drake May goes 11-1 and then beats Clemson in the title game and puts up huge numbers doing it. Like he's going to at least get himself an invite. And you can rub your eyes, Katie. I know you don't want me to talk good about your team, but Drake May is incredible and has been great.
It's not that I don't know when people talk well. How can how can you separate? Yes, the offense is great. I look at this team and
He doesn't play defense, Katie.
I know, but like the team as a whole, it's also like you said this earlier, I think on Brandon Walker's show, it's not the best player, it's the best player on the best team.
Again,
Like,
if that motherfucker is sitting there 11-1 and beats Clemson, I mean, golly, that's what an accomplishment.
Katie, let me just speak to this as somebody who hates anybody saying anything about my team too. And I'm not putting Drake May on the star power level of Johnny, but Johnny wasn't on the best team by any stretch of the imagination. He just had, and I mean, you look at, he won the Heisman. Now, granted, the race was much easier that year. I mean, Manti, again, we talked about that, but like, if you put up the numbers and you have that signature win.
RG3 in 2011, Johnny Manziel in 2012, Lamar Jackson in 2016. That's the kind of Heisman that Drake May would win. I'm not saying Drake May would win it. I don't even think he's in. But if we're talking scenarios, Jack has left.
What happened to Jack?
I think it's motion sensor. A lot of the lights upstairs.
Jack's in space now.
That looked cool. Whatever the lights came on, and I, and again, I'd like it on record. I'm not saying that Drake May are those guys, RG3 or Johnny or Lamar, but there is scenarios where, depending on what happens with the rest of these guys, if he has crazy ass numbers and only has one loss, I mean, that's not a shoe out to be invited to New York.
That's just not a word at all.
It's not a shoe in.
Yeah.
I'm just scared to get excited. I think that's at the end of the day. Like when I
don't have to get excited.
Can be let down.
I'm not telling you to get excited.
Also,
but you can see the whole.
I can't get the lights on.
Oh, chaos has ensued. It's like 1:30 in the morning at Barstool and chaos has ensued. Brandon, just out of curiosity, I know shoe out's not a term, but what would be the opposite of a shoe in?
Long shot.
Fair.
You just said it, Casey. It's fucking 1:30 in the morning. You're asking me a question like that?
Well, because I kind of want to make shoe out a thing.
We're not making shoe out a thing. All right.
Like, it's a shoe out.
Jack has like been voted off. This is like a reality show where he's been voted off and his chair goes dark or something.
Where is he? I'm trying to figure out where he is.
The lounge upstairs.
No, I didn't know where he was either. I don't know where she's in the radio room, right?
Yeah, it's where you get hair and makeup done, Casey.
That is?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't recognize it.
All right, here's the good. I wrote down the good. Should we wait for Jack? Is he okay?
I'm
Jack,
kind of concerned.
Just be on the screen dark.
Is that him walking around in the background?
You can't figure out how to get the lights on?
Who's that creeping around in the back?
That's his shadow.
That's me.
That's his reflection.
That's me.
I thought there was somebody on the other side of the glass just like walking around creeping on you.
All right, here we go. Here are your goods. I wrote them down.
Oh, I'm kind of in. You can kind of see me.
This is fine. You look fine.
Yeah, no, you're totally good.
It's fine. All right. Now what are you doing? Okay.
I can't get over the way it looks like there's a person stalking you right now.
A good list. We start in Lawrence, Kansas, where the Kansas Jayhawks have now won their 6th game of the season. They tear down the goalpost. They beat the piss out of Oklahoma State. They absolutely have turned everything around there. They were the center of college football for about 5 weeks when they started 5-0, and then they lost a few games. You're like, is it going to end well? And they go to 6-3. They beat Oklahoma State. Lance Leipold, with one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen. Not because he's going 6-3, because he's going 6-3 at Kansas. He's going 6-3 at a place that hadn't won 6 games over the last 5 years. So remarkable achievement by the Kansas Jayhawks.
Did you see the Kansas Twitter troll of Tennessee with the goalposts?
Yeah, saying awesome. no GoFundMe needed, and they already had a new goalpost in the ground.
So funny.
And even if they were trolling Tennessee, my question is, did they take that picture last night? Like, how is there a new goalpost in the ground already?
The other end zone?
Oh, well, I'm sure they took them both down. You don't just take one down.
You saw it made it out of the stadium. There's a video of it.
Yeah, but you don't just take.
I have a hard time believing that Tennessee couldn't have had goalposts up that night too.
I don't know, y'all. Okay, all right, you're right.
I don't know. I don't know how they work. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if there's like a goalpost storage inside stadiums. Maybe there is.
All right, more goods. I can say what I want about them, but ultimately 9-0 is 9-0 for TCU, and they knocked out another quarterback, by the way, which continues maybe the most remarkable run we've ever seen in sports of knocking out quarterbacks. But they're 9-0, and 9-0 is all that matters. I don't know what else to say about them. They faced down Texas Tech today. It was a close game for a while. They ended up stretching out there at the end a little bit. Maybe not the end, but in the third and fourth quarter, they outclassed Texas Tech, and they're 9-0. There.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to any team. All you can ask is for them to win the games that are on their schedule, and thus far they have. And we know what's coming up for them. It's not going to be easy, but being 9-0 in November is nothing to turn your nose up at. And I mean, the Big 12 is just confusing. It truly is confusing.
Well,
now Kansas State has lost.
The one thing about TCU is they're 9-0. Their wins are really starting to fall apart. Oklahoma got beat again by Baylor. Kansas State got beat again. Oklahoma State got beat again. Like, all their wins are kind of aging like a.
But those teams, they have to they have to play Texas. They have to play Baylor.
Right.
So that's, you want to talk about like true tests. It's like the Big 12 to me. I mean, I think it's very clear. I don't think that there's another answer. TCU is the best team in the Big 12 right now, but they have to play those teams that are making those surges. Texas being one of them. So it'll be interesting to see. The Big 12 is fascinating. It really is.
Well, I'll say this. If they walk into Texas and win next week, I'll stop all my TCU bullshit. I'll stop all that. If they go to Texas and win, I will be forced to bend the knee and say I was wrong. We'll see. Another good thing in college football today, Bo Nix in Oregon. Now, they played a really shitty team, but Bo Nix is just – there's something electric about him, man. When you look at Oregon and you watch them, even if you're like, we have a 6 TV setup, right? We have 6 TV setup, and in the middle was Tennessee, and above them was somebody else. Oregon was in the bottom left, but it seemed like Bo Nix would just get your eyeballs every now and then, doing something crazy, catching a touchdown pass. And then, did you see his Jared Lorenzen attempt?
Yeah. Brandon, I was about to say, not only would he catch our eye, I think that we missed the second half kickoff of Tennessee, Georgia, because we were watching Bo Nix. I think that we both looked down and we were like, oh, they kicked off. The game's already started, because we were fascinated with what Bo Nix was doing.
It would be easy to say Georgia beat them 49-3. Wouldn't want to see that again. I wouldn't mind seeing that again. Like, Bo Nix and Dan Lanning both settled in, both figured out what they are, and now have been totally different. I wouldn't mind seeing that again. I certainly wouldn't hold that as a disqualifier against Oregon at all.
No, I think that, there would be a slight hesitation, but if they got beat 49-3 in week 6, week 8, week 10, different, week 1, I'd like to see. I just, at this point, Jack, I can't believe I'm about to say it. I like Bo Nix so much. I kind of want Bo Nix to win the Heisman, because this legend of Bo Nix is back in my head, and I love it. I'm eating it up.
Well, it's a great story. It's a great story. Like, he was born to be Auburn's quarterback. He was. His dad played there on an undefeated team. He was there for 3 years. Auburn goes through all kind of crap off the field, and Bo Nix gets an escape, and he goes out west, and it starts off embarrassing and terrible, and then just slowly but surely, he's just making plays. That offense, they've got playmakers all over the field. Like, they're a fun team to watch. That whole Pac-12 is fun to watch in my estimation.
Yeah, speaking of California, it's 34-21, but it's
USC refuses to blow anybody out. They flat out refuse to blow anybody out.
I mean, there's a lot of time left in the fourth quarter, but Brandon, and this is something that obviously I feel like anybody who hates Auburn can understand, but it really does come down to Bo Nix was easier to make fun of because of who he was playing for. And you, even like you said earlier tonight, you're like, wait, has Bo Nix always been attractive? I was like, yeah, I think that he has. It was easy to make fun of him because he was at Auburn, but now he's at Oregon. We don't hate Oregon. Got a good looking kid like that. It's like everything has changed because he's not wearing an Auburn uniform.
Texas goes on the road, and their up and down season continues. Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, the Texas are on the road. They beat Kansas State 34-27, a very competitive game. But Texas is one of those teams playing, like Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, they're playing for next year. They're playing for building the program, and every little bit helps. And now they have a gigantic opportunity to not only have a big win next week when TCU pays a visit, but to really reach out to TCU, who's right there next to them, and say, hey, you're not, well, not really next to them, but say you're not who you think you are. We're Texas, and it's always going to be like that. So that's what Texas has their opportunity next.
Really quick, I know he has a way outside shot, but Bijan Robinson had 200 yards today. Like he's I wouldn't say a dark horse because his name is very much known, but I mean, if he continues to put up numbers like this, like he could be invited to New York.
Potentially, yeah. Florida State kills Miami. That's a game where I was like, I don't know why y'all won't stop me from betting on Miami. I've told you multiple times, stop me from betting on Miami, and I keep doing it. Florida State,
45-3,
just destroy Miami. NC State, you talk about a team that's had every reason to throw in the towel and quit. They beat Wake tonight, 30-21. Freshman quarterback continues to play well there. North Carolina is 8-1. 8-1. It is never pretty. It is never sexy. It's one of the weirdest 8-1s I've ever seen. I don't think they're a good football team. They're 8-1.
Katie,
I said it. Like, what?
No, be happy.
I'm never happy about it. It doesn't feel real. Like I keep on waiting for the shoe to drop. Like Virginia is so bad. Like we just get there by the skin of our teeth, and it keeps on happening. But at the same time, we still keep pulling it out. So I don't know. I still hate Gene Chizik, and that was disgusting.
All right, three more goods, and I'll move on. I got to give a shout out. We've seen a lot of interim coaches step up and lead some turnarounds and make some teams better. Kind of like Williams at Auburn. They were down 24-3 in this game. He's the new head coach. Or he's the interim head coach of Auburn. They were down 24-3. I was kind of jealous of what I saw in the second half from Auburn. His energy was awesome. You could tell the players, awesome. They would make a play. They'd like run over to him and chest bump him. Like he was fun to watch, and he was a great player in his day at Auburn. I think he's going to be one of those guys that even though you have staff turnover, he's going to be on Auburn's next coaching staff, and then their next coaching staff, and then their next coaching staff. Like he's an Auburn guy till the day he dies. And I thought he was outstanding to watch as an interim coach tonight. I got two more goods. If we're going to make fun of Iowa when their offense sucks and loses, they go on the road today, score 24 points, and beat Purdue. They scored 33 last week. Like they're a joke as far as an offense goes. They have been, but last 2 weeks they're getting better. And going to Purdue is not easy, and they made it look easy. So shout out to Iowa. And my
credit to you for giving them credit.
And my last good. But I'm going to tee this up because there's so many programs with first-year coaches across the country showing hope and showing that they're building for the future. But there's one program that has hired a man who has changed everything, who has walked in there and has turned everything around and has got this program looking like a program of the future. Jack, who am I talking about?
Jim Mora.
And the UConn Huskies. They beat UMass last night, 27-10. What's your record now?
5-5.
5-5. One win from bowl eligibility. Who are our last two games?
Liberty.
Oh boy.
And then Army. I think they could beat Army though.
That's a potential. Yeah, you could beat Army. Army's not all that good. Not very explosive at all. You could.
And I'm getting to the point where it's like they're getting too good, and is someone going to come in and buy Jim Mora?
Relax.
I'm just saying.
They're not that good. Like they're 5-5. I'm giving you a little props.
No. I mean, we run New England. We won New England. We're the king of New England once again. Order's restored. It's like, and And fuck all of you who made fun of me for however long this podcast has been around about UConn. Suck my dick.
Suck his dick.
And the king of the Cumble.
King of the
Yes.
Cumble.
Oh my God, Katie, can you please get Jack a custom King of the Cumble shirt? Please.
Jack's going to be out of the club in New York. Hey, you see I'm the king of the Cumble?
With the cumble that looks like mashed potatoes right on his
Also,
chest.
did you guys see the reporter that had his wedding the morning of the Cumble and then
Insanity.
made it to the Cumble? That just shows.
Listen,
Built different.
respect the hustle, respect it. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, first of all, don't get married in the middle of football season, but also like I think you can sit the Cumble out, you know?
Can I say something misogynistic?
Better than anybody I know.
Did y'all see y'all watch Georgia and Tennessee when it started raining?
Yeah.
I don't remember what the sideline reporter's name was.
Jenny Dell.
Jenny Dell. When it started raining, she put a hat on. Woo, she was beautiful with a hat on. I don't know.
Oh, that's not misogynistic. That's the compliment.
Okay, good. But because she was a beautiful lady anyway, but something about when she put that hat on, I was like, man, she's just
Something.
huh?
She almost lost her arm in the middle of the game or after the game when Kirby Smart almost literally pulled it off her literal body.
That would have been a hell of a story.
Yeah, also just like stop grabbing microphones. No, Jenny Dell is very pretty, very nice person too. But she is one of those who can pull off a baseball cap very well. Credit to her.
I'll tell you one more good thing.
I just real quick. We're low key. Baseball cap on women is an underappreciated thing because it always looks good.
Preach it. I wish it was more acceptable to wear them because you know what? And Katie knows this too. You don't have to care about the top of your hair. It puts a nice little shadow over your eyes. It makes everything easier. Why is it not more acceptable for women to wear hats all the time?
Jack, give me a good.
All right, I know what is acceptable, and that's spending your Friday night at the inaugural Barstool Sports Invitational, which is coming to the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia this Friday, November 11th. Stoolies and Hoops fans from around the country will be there to witness Barstool Sports pull off a college basketball event like none other, and that includes our very own Brandon Walker. Brandon, are you getting excited for this? Mississippi State is featured.
Mississippi State is featured. They're playing Akron in the nightcap, the main event game. I'll probably be playing in Yak basketball. I'll probably be hosting the in-between game segment, which is going to run about 8 minutes. I'll probably be trying to dunk a basketball off a trampoline. If you like seeing me get embarrassed or my greatest triumph, come to the Wells Fargo Center Friday night, November 11th. Also, my wedding anniversary that night. My wife is coming with me, and we're going to get a hotel room in Philly, and I've said too much. But anyway, the Barstool Sports Invitational.
Yes, and if you are not in the Philadelphia area and you're not making the trip, you can still enjoy the entire broadcast online. You know, we love the internet here at Barstool Sports. Some people say we invented it. Tickets are still available at barstool.link/invitational or tune in this Friday starting at 5 p.m. Eastern on barstool.tv. That's barstool.tv. And Casey, tell them what time that is Central.
They know if they're in Philly, they know.
She wasn't listening. It's 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. All right.
I wasn't listening, but I felt like I was getting set up for a joke. I also realized that my Friday night is going to be spent on my couch, my big pregnant ass eating, watching Brandon Walker try to jump on a trampoline. So something to look forward to.
You heard it here first. Casey Smith will be on her couch ass eating this Friday night. So here we go. Here's
ass eating while watching Brandon jump on a trampoline. Now riddle me that.
Here is your bad list, okay? And I have 6 of them. You guys can add if you'd like. This was a really good day for me. It was a really good day because I got to watch my new friends at Tennessee. I got to watch them lose. I got to watch Mississippi State win an electric game. But you know what I got to watch that was the most special of all of it?
Can I guess?
Yes.
Arkansas losing to Liberty.
I got to watch my friends at Arkansas host Liberty. And they got to play Liberty at home and absolutely got their doors blown off for 3 quarters. Now, they made it close at the end. They were down 21-0, ended up losing 21-19. But Sam Pittman and that coaching staff and Sam Pittman and that team, who everybody's given so much credit for, oh, he's great. Turns out, not really. Like, they are remarkably average. They lose at home to Liberty, an embarrassing, terrible loss. KJ Jefferson was awful. He was terrible today. They lose to Liberty. And it sucks I had to see Hugh Freeze triumph, but if it comes at the expense of Sam Pittman, more power to you, Hugh Freeze. I hope you're enjoying the finest whores in all the land tonight.
What a classy guy you are, Brandon. You just want the best for everybody.
You deserve that. Absolutely deserve it. Arkansas, a fraud in the top 10 earlier. I said it, and you guys didn't believe me. Maybe next time you'll listen to Daddy.
Ew. I will say that I've known you for long enough. I'm close enough to you where I can like gauge how much you hate certain things by what you say in like passing remarks. Anytime you're okay with Hugh Freeze winning something and Hugh Freeze being the victorious coach in a situation, you must fucking hate the other side of it. You hate Sam Pittman and you think he's so dumb and fat that you would root for Hugh Freeze. That'll tell you something, folks. Braden Walker hates you.
I am truly a petty piece of shit. No, the second bad, Illinois. Kind of gross, guys. Illinois starts off 7-1. It gets ranked. They're leading the Big Ten West, and then they welcome in Michigan State. They're the double-digit favorites, and then they just Illinois themselves. They shit the bed and lose the game. Shout out to Michigan State for getting off the mat, and in a year where nothing's gone their way, they go on the road and get a big win. But Illinois, you should be Michigan's going to depend on you to help prop them up a little bit later when they play you and beat you. It would have helped them out if you didn't lose to teams like Michigan State. But that was lackluster from the Illinois Fighting Illini.
Yeah, I think the issue with it is because we've talked about like, is Illinois for real for like their sector of the realness category of the rankings. To lose to Michigan State is bad because Michigan State has looked so gross. Like, had they slipped up a different game where it's like, all right, Illinois was bound to, I know they already had the loss early in the season, but they were bound to trip up. It's like you lost to Michigan State. Michigan State's been the ass of the joke all year. And we were watching in the gambling cave, and all I could think about in the back of my head was like, I just want Jack to be able to clown Michigan State some more. And I like Brett Bielema. I really wish this wasn't happening.
My next one. So often, and I think Katie walked around the office the other day and asked people this question, who's the next coach to get fired in college football? I think that has become especially clear right now. Why? No. It's not Jimbo, sweetie. You're doing amazing. It's not Jimbo. You don't have to relax.
I'm like bracing myself.
Right. It's not, you look like somebody's about to hit you. No, you're doing amazing, baby. It is. Does anybody know who it is? Because I'm about to tell you.
David Shaw.
It is David Shaw at Stanford. Listen, it's okay to lose football games. You lose a home game 52-14 to a Wazoo team who's got a coach in his first year. Wazoo's good. They're not a bad team, but 52-14, Stanford is lifeless. Stanford has to fire David Shaw. They've been a rotting corpse of a team for several years now. He ain't got it. And Stanford deserves better. They can do better. Nobody comes to their games anymore. Nobody expects them to win anymore. Stanford, David Shaw, ew, gross. But there's another coach that needs to get fired too. Neil Brown at West Virginia goes on the road to Iowa State, gets beat 31-14. Iowa State can't score on anybody. Iowa State's terrible. And West Virginia is done. Neil, I've heard they can't fire him because they owe him too much money. But I almost think you can't afford not to fire him.
Yeah, he's been on the is he not, are they not list all year. I think that, like week 3 or 4, it was like, okay, Neil Brown's next. And then he did just enough to stop those conversations. But in reality, he never really did. You're right. Like that, like you want to talk about storylines that have carried over for the whole season. He did enough to prolong his tenure week to week, but not for another season.
Couple more. Well, the air's out of the balloon for Oklahoma State, right? I mean, that's they're just getting their ass kicked all of a sudden. They had a half a year where Oklahoma State fans are getting mad at me for not putting them in the top 10. All of a sudden, not only are they getting beat, they're getting drug all over the field. 48-0 last week. What was the final score today? Like 37-14 to Kansas. They're getting destroyed.
It is truly a mystery what happens with Mike Gundy in certain seasons. And sometimes it's, like we saw last year, it was the Big 12 championship. It's like when they lost this year, everything just fell apart. It was like they had their Mike Gundy moment, Mike Gundy'd, and then instead of rebounding and saying, all right, we lost the game, let's get it together, just absolutely and a shitstorm. Spencer Sanders, like a month ago, we were talking about how crazy his numbers are and how great he looks. And it is disgusting in Stillwater.
Man, I mean, USC just doesn't know how to blow anybody out. 5:41 to go in the game. They're going to be up 41-27 over Cal, but they just scored to make it a 41-27 game. And UCLA finishing off. There's 12 minutes left. They're up 17 over Arizona State in the fourth quarter. Where are we at? Oh, one more bad. Syracuse has fallen apart. Syracuse. That storyline, which for half the season was pretty good. They were winning games they probably shouldn't have won back then, and now they're catching up. Pitt beats them 19-9. Syracuse lifeless. Any other goods or bads to add from anybody?
I know we kind of mentioned them already, but I mean, Miami is the epitome of bad. They are just an absolute disaster. I don't understand how anybody, myself included, what's happening? Brandon, are you good?
Yeah.
He's like looking out the window.
Is somebody knocking on your window?
No.
What's happening? Well, I didn't know if we needed to be alarmed.
I'm fine. Keep talking, lady.
Oh, I mean, I was just adding Miami. We've already talked about how bad they looked tonight.
Yeah, no, Miami's just, I don't get it, man.
I don't
really
understand.
get it. Miami just, I was trying to think of some other bads. There's been a lot of this was a great week to be a college football fan. Like that's a good, my big question is, and this is for you, Casey and Katie, and obviously if Brandon gets back, we've seen elite teams, and every year there seems like there's 2 or 3 elite teams, and they're so much better than everybody else. Have those elite teams gotten worse, or has the rest of the country got better?
I think it's probably a little combination of both. I mean, if you're looking like the Big Ten, Ohio State was used to being the only elite team there, and then Michigan joining them as an elite team kind of muddies that picture a little bit. Yeah, it's a good question. I think the transfer portal, and the bigger deal is the COVID year still allowing old players to be there. Like you got 22, 23, 24-year-old men playing at teams like they're not quite good enough to go to the NFL, but they're really good college football players because they're seasoned. I think that's contributing to helping the lesser teams be really good this year, or at least be on the level. Because an 18-year-old 5-star and a 23-year-old good college player are not all that different.
Yeah, I think that the COVID year, granted, next season and the season after, it'll like slowly fade away. So I think sometimes we forget how much advantage that gave to certain players. But if I had to pick between like our teams getting worse or better, when you talk about like the elite teams, I mean, we've talked about it a ton. It's the transfer portal is now evening out so much of the playing field where you don't have to have the best recruiting of all time as long as you can get 1 or 2 people. I mean, and I know USC, we always use as the example because of Lincoln Riley getting Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison, but it's a prime example that if you just get a couple of guys in, it can change the trajectory of a program immediately. So I do like the idea though, that it's evening out. There's still like the Georgia of the year, but like I like the idea that Alabama is gone from playoff contention in November because it makes that parity so different. And I like that.
All right, my last bad, then we'll move on. Casey, you don't have to react to this at all, but Jimbo officially can't have a winning season at Texas A&M. They're now 3-6. The next time they lose, they'll be knocked out of bowl contention. It just continues getting worse. And have they got injuries? Yeah, so does everybody else. But I thought even when the bottom fell out of that offense, which it has, even when the bottom fell out, that defense should still be good because it was good last year and they have got incredible 5-star talent over there, and their defense sucks now too. Like, what's he doing to improve the program in the middle of the year? Nothing. There. You don't have to talk about it anymore. So now we transition into—
They're not going to make a bowl game.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not. I mean, the way Auburn played today, I think Auburn's going to beat them.
Yeah.
The way, and obviously LSU is rolling now, so I don't see it.
They're going to win. You want it. Everyone talks about, 8-4. Folks, they're going 4-8.
Yeah.
We'll
show them.
One last good. Anthony Richardson in Florida, even though it was against a flu-ridden Texas A&M team with a lot of injuries in the flu, but good win for Billy Napier and the crew.
Yeah, these first-year coaches, man, just show me something. Show me something. Give me things to hold on to, and it can range from what Brian Kelly did tonight or what Marcus Freeman, all the way down to Billy Napier going on the road and beating a program that's been ahead of his was ahead of his last year anyway. All right, now we transition into who won the weekend, who lost the weekend, and our shit list. So I will start with Miss Casey Smith. Who won the weekend?
I think it's pretty obvious. I would assume this one would be a fan favorite, a podcast favorite. I think it's Georgia. And I think that what I said earlier, I'll just repeat really quickly, is that when we sat in Hoboken week 1 and when we talked about this, it was like, look, they just beat Oregon 49-3. They're rolling. They're the best team in the country. And despite the fact that there are definitely arguments you could make for other teams right now that could play with them, they proved it. I mean, Tennessee gets the #1 ranking in the college football playoff. Everybody, including myself, not everybody, Brandon, you were not on Tennessee, but most of the country, had this hype around Tennessee, and everybody was so excited. And they proved that, they can slow down a really good quarterback and a really good offense, and they shut everybody up. And Athens was insane. The stadium was insane, and they made the loudest statement of the week, and they are the #1 team in the country. I don't think you can make an argument for anybody else.
Jack Mack, who won the week?
I was going to say Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart may very well be looked at as the elite coach in college football very soon, considering what we are looking at, a potential Clemson-less world. Not that it's Clemson-less, but the Clemson dynasty seems to be a little bit on edge. Same with Alabama. And Kirby reminded everybody this week that, hey, this thing that I've built, it's good and it's elite. So Kirby Smart.
Katie Stats, who won the week?
The first-year coaches combination of Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly, very similar. If he started first year, they both have, in your words, Brandon, a big win to hang their hat on and to show where the program's going.
Good one.
Brandon Walker, who won the week?
Thank you,
My
Katie,
bad.
for being present with us. Yeah, the answer is Georgia. Okay, it is. And it is also Kirby Smart. They had the biggest game of the week at their place. Their fans were incredible. They won, and they showed, hey, guys, Tennessee's been the story of the year. Everybody's happy about them. We're the fucking champs.
Mm-hmm.
You got to come through us. Tennessee couldn't do it. But I also want to kind of split mine and say Georgia / Brian Kelly. 8 weeks ago, nobody thought this was possible. 8 weeks ago, everybody thought maybe that was a mistake. Maybe he should have stayed at Notre Dame. Maybe they should have hired somebody else. And tonight, Baton Rouge was as Baton Rouge as it ever gets. 102,000 people going nuts. the earthquake game in 1988 registered on the Richter scale when they scored a touchdown to beat Auburn late in the game. I wonder what happened on the Richter scale tonight when LSU scored the 2-point conversion to beat Alabama. It was an explosion of euphoria. And Brian Kelly did that, man. Brian Kelly did that in his first year. What's he going to do in his second year? What's he going to do in his third year? All right.
Can I say something really quick? And this is not to discredit what happened in Athens, because I fully admit that I was wrong, especially in the first half. But when I look at, you talk about the euphoria and things registering on the Richter scale, like when I look at how crazy stadiums get, Death Valley, what happened in Baton Rouge tonight, that's the pinnacle to me. And I realized that Georgia fans showed out. But like when you talk about crazy home atmospheres and everybody want to talk about how loud the stadium was and it hadn't registered that loud at Neyland and all that, that's all fine and good. But like the way Baton Rouge looked tonight, that's the pinnacle of home field advantage. I just like to say that.
Casey Smith.
Oh.
I'm tired. Casey Smith, who lost the weekend?
Brandon, it would be Dabo Sweeney and the Clemson Tigers. They won 10 games last year, and we still talked about how it wasn't a great season for them, which it wasn't, because they're used to being, national in the national title race. But just the way that they got beat tonight by a Notre Dame team who has struggled, everything we talked about when we broke down the game, just to have the clear path. College Football Playoff Committee puts you at number 4. You just got to win out the next 3 or 4 games, and to get embarrassed the way that they did, and just to have the storyline of they're the best team, one of the best 4 teams in the country, die a fiery death is embarrassing for them. And also just, the storyline of Dabo, and like, is he going to be the next Nick Saban? And, what's this Clemson dynasty going to look like? That's not a completely dead thing, but just to lose the way that they did tonight and make the ACC out of the college football playoff. I mean, they're dead and done when it comes to that. I think that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Tiger fan.
Jack Mack, who lost the week?
I think Alabama fans did, because
Wow.
I think there's a little bit of a belief that, hey, is the music slowing down a bit?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not saying it's going to not pick up again, but I don't know, man. The music may be slowing down.
Hey, man, listen, they are not going to make the playoff. They're not going to make the SEC championship game. And next year, the one guy who's kept them pretty good this year, Bryce Young's going to be playing for the Broncos, or he's going to be playing for the Bengals, not the Bengals, but he's going to be playing for an NFL team. Will Anderson's going to be playing for an NFL team. Like, you ain't winning this year when your talent looked like it was peaking. The fat lady isn't singing, but she might be getting out of the limo, walking into the concert hall.
Well, especially when you mentioned earlier, like, it's not Nick Saban's fault that these guys he got in the transfer portal didn't pan out. But if the transfer portal is evening teams out, then, is Nick Saban equipped to do it? Probably. He's the greatest of all time at what he does, but it does make things more interesting.
Katie Stats, who lost the weekend?
I agree with what's been said. To add another, I'm going to have to go with Tennessee. I think by no means is their season over, but I think it was just a huge wake-up call. They had all this momentum. They were excited, talking shit, and they're still a fantastic team, but it's like, oh, we still have another mountain to hit. Like, Georgia is like, we can't compete with them right now. Like, maybe we can come back and try again later. Just a smack of a wake-up to reality.
Brandon Walker, who lost the weekend.
It's just obvious Clemson. Like, they were so adamant, and I'll even go so far as to say Clemson fans, they were so adamant that we were wrong. Everybody on the outside was wrong. Oh, yeah, you just don't see it. Oh, yeah, you told us we weren't elite in 2016, 2018. Oh, yeah, you just hate Dabo. Well, no. We watched the games. We saw what you did against ACC competition, and we said, you know what? This just isn't an elite Clemson team. This just isn't a team that is going to compete for a national title or should be up there with your Georgias and your Tennessees and your Ohio States. And we were right. And Clemson fans they're a cult, and they're born to defend Clemson. That's fine. But every now and then, you got to look outside your cult. You got to look outside your little hole, and you got to say, maybe we're not that good. And Clemson fans could not do that. Well, Notre Dame showed you tonight. Touchdown Jesus showed you tonight. Yeah, that was almost a mistake.
Yeah. That woke me up real quick. Whoa.
Touchdown Jesus showed you tonight real quick that, hey, you're just not elite. And sorry, you've been elite, but right now, that's not who you are anymore. And you got to figure out what you're going to do to get it back. All right.
You meant touchdown Judas, right?
I don't know who I meant. I officially ran out of gas about 20 minutes ago. I don't know if y'all saw
definitely.
it, but the second I stood up because the windows were open and it was too cold in here, and when I sat back down, I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at. I haven't been paying attention to y'all. I'm just trying to run out the string here.
I mean, I like earlier when I was like mixing up all the team names in my head, that's when I thought I had lost steam. The Freudian slip that you almost just had, I feel like I'm good. It's 2 a.m., baby. That's what we do here.
You can, if you were watching this, you could see the wall hit me in the face.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Do we have any shit lists?
I don't really have anything that I'm super like passionate about. I guess I'll put the first time this year I think I've done it, I'll put myself on the shit list. I'm a sucker for good storylines. I'm a sucker for good narratives. And I think that a lot of people are, and I fully bought into Tennessee, and obviously I wasn't alone in that, but just, sometimes I allow my heart, Brandon, to speak louder than my brain. And I truly believed that Tennessee was going to win that game tonight, and truly believed that they were the better team, and they clearly are not. So I'm on the shit list for romanticizing beliefs that don't really have much backing to them.
Jack Mack.
I don't really have one. USC's defense is my shit list. It's just dreadful.
Katie Stats.
I'm probably speaking more for a specific fan base, but just the moral Cristobal. Like, you're Miami. You should be having fun. It's like, I have no personal stake in it, but just like 3 points, like, do better. Like stick up for yourself. I wasn't following college football when Miami was great, but from what I like, make Miami football great again. Like, it's disappointing.
To be fair, Katie, you were barely born, so.
I don't really have one either, but I'll just make a brief statement. Ohio State and Michigan fans, when you watch the other one play and struggle, and you just start doing a victory lap and running around and dancing and doing all these crazy ass things, just know that you play later too. And for the first half of the Michigan game, and they ended up winning in a blowout, but it was Ohio State fans just dancing on Michigan's grave, Michigan fans dancing on Ohio State's grave. You guys have a 1-game season coming up. Just relax on each other and just get there, because these tweets that you see during each other's games are just crazy. And it's a minor shit list. It's not really anything that matters. It's just kind of like an amusement more so than usually.
I was about to say, I don't want them to stop that. I think it's funny. As long as I'm not in the mix of it, as long as I'm not the one having to fight back or throw stones, I love watching that.
You know what? I fucked that up anyway. You want a shit list?
Uh-oh.
Listen, hillbillies. Arkansas fans, you spent the offseason telling me Sam Pittman. And guess what? The coach you thought you had was a mirage. The program you thought you had was a mirage. Everything you thought you had was a mirage. He's not a very good coach. Your quarterback's not a very good quarterback. Your offense isn't a very good offense. Your team isn't a very good team. It's fine. You're better than you were, but are you where you wanted to be? Are you where you thought you would be? And yet, when I say these things, do you get mad at Sam Pittman for losing to Liberty? Do you get mad at Kendall Briles for not being able to score more than 19 points? No. You get mad at me for being the big, bad, mean Mississippi State fan, for being this jackass, this douchebag. Hey, guys, I didn't lose to Liberty at home. He did. I didn't score 19 points against Liberty. They did. Not my fault. So, if you get mad at me, that's fine. Enjoy it, but just know this. Next week, you'll have the same shitty coach. You'll have the same bad quarterback, and you're going to play better teams. So have fun, Arkansas. Brandon Walker wins. He always wins in the end. That's me, Brandon Walker. All right. Jack, do we have any more ads that you got to squeeze in here?
No, all the ads, thanks to our advertisers and people who listen to the ads too. We're all done.
We are all done.
Pac-12 after dark is going full Pac-12 after dark mode. It's a 6-point game with Arizona State and UCLA, and Cal's 35-41. So
USC's got the ball at midfield right now, trying to run out the clock. Did Arizona State just score, or do they have?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they just scored a 2-point conversion. So there's still 6 minutes and 24 seconds left in that game. So that game could go either way tonight. It looks like I would think USC is about to survive, but we'll see. Anyway, for Katie Smith, Casey Stats.
It's okay, Brandon. It's all right. You need a nap.
I hope y'all enjoy these Sunday morning recaps because they're going to fucking kill me. That is unnecessary roughness.